Hey there guys, Cubby and Brandon here with the comic reviews this week. We got some Marvel, DC, and Boom Studios for you.
We've got Valiant, IDW, Image, and Dark Horse, so zap.
Read it up, I don't know. Watch the video.
Read it up, guys.
Watch the video, watch the video. Hey there guys, Cubby here with my comic reviews this week. I got to read Adventure Time #9, and what? Awesome book, always. This book is just really, really consistent. I mean, it's not hard to make a good Adventure Time book. The characters are already there, the story's already there. All you gotta do is add the crazy kookiness, and these guys know exactly what they're doing. And if you're watching the show, you know the last 2 episodes totally changed the game on the whole show, changed the vibe, changed the way everything feels. I mean, the forums are like blowing up with what people are like trying to like figure out what's going on. I mean, it's crazy. So reading this, it's nice to come back to the original status quo, the original way things go. It's a refreshing break from all the craziness. So I'm gonna highly rate the main book, the main story. It's gonna be a 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls, obviously. The backup story is even better, I think. It's just a great little tiny morsel of awesome Jake and Finn time, some fishing action, some Candy Kingdom. It's just great. And it's also written and drawn by the Houghton brothers, who are of Reed Gunther fame. If you're not reading that story as well, definitely get on that. But I'm giving that 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls, so guess what? It's a mathematical equation, bro. 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls for everything. Check it out, guys.
Hey nerds, Brandon here, and I'm going to start off my comic reviews this week with The Talon, #1. New book from Scott Snyder, James V. Tivian, coming out of the Court of Owls and Night of the Owl storyline from Batman. We have the Renegade Owl, who quit a long time ago, comes back to Gotham after hearing of the Night of the Owls to make sure they're all gone. And guess what? They're not. They're still there. There's a couple of them running around, and he finds that out the hard way. But he meets somebody, and they really set up the premise for this book, which sounds awesome. If you were a fan of that storyline, you need to be reading this title. I think there's a lot more to the characters than what we've just gotten in the introduction. There's probably some darker things behind, or darker motives behind why they're doing what they're doing. But I think this is awesome. You know, this is a book I was very kind of skeptical on. Maybe it felt a little unnecessary, but after reading Zero and this, I'm on board. I can't wait to see where this goes. 5 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. Pick it up.
Hey gang, Jim here with my comic book reviews this week. First up is The Dark Knight #13. I gotta be honest, The Dark Knight has not held up as well to Batman in my opinion, and 13 sort of shows that even more with the way the Joker's coming back in Batman. But focusing more on The Dark Knight, we have Scarecrow, who is holding Batman hostage, and oh my god, guess what? Batman has to face his worst fears. Ooh, who saw that coming? It wasn't very interesting. We reveal some things. We actually learn a lot more about little Johnny Crane there, but we see Batman having to face the fact that maybe his life could have gone this way and it could have been nice and happy and all this, but it's gone this way and he's got a fear, or his fear is the dark, and that's what it is. And it really is very talky and exposition, and no offense, that's not what Batman is. He's either detective, action. I don't need the talky, that's kind of boring. And to boot, it was short, so I guess that was a good part, but the reason it was short is at the end they had a very long promo for Superman Earth 1 Volume 2, which if you check out Bobby's review of it, it's great, but I don't need most of my book eaten up by a preview of it. So I can only give this book 2 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
All right guys, so I got to read Star Wars Darth Maul Death Sentence #4. Now while I did not read 1, 2, or 3, you do not have to really read them because it kind of finalizes everything, and as long as you know your basic Star Wars lore, stuff that's going on in the Clone Wars right now, you know that Darth Maul's brother's back. He comes back in this issue. You know that he is a cyborg. Kind of explains it more in this issue. There's some characters that were really, really, really badass in this issue that I did not know about. I'm pretty sure they got introduced in this earlier issues, so I'm gonna go check that out, and I definitely recommend you check that out too, because it really just had this sense of, you know, the certain characters just, you know, make ultimate sacrifices, and, you know, Obi-Wan's around because of certain things that happen in here. So it explains a lot in the backstory, and kind of gives you more insight, you know, Jedi, how powerful they were, how deep their connection was with each other, and kind of how the master and Padawan relationship works, and how that can really, really mess with some people. I really enjoy what they do with the Jedi and the Sith, how they have the Sith kind of the antithesis of that, but they still also kind of do the same things with their master and Padawans. I mean, or their trainees, whatever you want to call them. I don't think it's Padawan. Anyway, you don't really go into that too much, but Jedis are definitely spotlighted in this book. A lot of heartbreak on their side, but man, it's always cool when someone goes out in a blaze of glory. And oh man, they go out in a blaze of glory. But I'm gonna give this book 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. It was really, really great. Could have been a little bit better, but hey, I'm gonna take what I can get.
Next up, I got to read Punisher Warzone, #1. This is a miniseries though, not an ongoing. And this looks like, I feel like this is setting up something big for the Punisher. The Avengers have decided that Frank Castle has walked around too long, unchecked, and that by not stopping him, they're saying what he does is okay, whether he's killing villains or not. They're done with it. And Spider-Man confronts him. There's somebody on the Avengers that kind of gives Frank a warning about everything. So I'm interested to see where this goes. But like I said, I feel like this is really setting up for something big with the Punisher, especially because it's just a mini-series. I feel like they have a big plan for him, and I can't wait to see what that is, and that alone is going to keep me reading this book. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
Next up, I got to read Archer and Armstrong #3. Now, if you've watched my previous reviews, you'll know that I absolutely love this book. And it picks up right where we left off, where Archer and Armstrong are still searching for pieces to the boon, and they're fighting nuns. How cool is that? They're looking for another piece of the boon. This time, they run right into Mary Maria, Armstrong's adopted sister. She's still indoctrined under her mom and dad's teaching, so she's still believing everything they say, where we already know Armstrong going against it, believing exactly what Archer has told him as far as what the past has been, the last 10,000 years, all that fun stuff. So there's a fight, which is really cool. Mary Maria ends up with the piece of the boon, but not only that, she realizes that Armstrong and Archer have 2 other pieces, so she steals them. Great conflict. She pulls a little evil villain thing unknowingly where she gives details of what has been going on and that other brothers and sisters have stolen other pieces of the boon. So now it's a little bit in peril that the sect, mom and dad's sect, have more pieces of the boon. There's only 1 piece left and they have to go get it. Armstrong gets injured, but he's okay. Archer gets shot in the eye with arrows, and he's a little blind, but he says he'll be fine in a couple days. Luckily, Archer knows exactly where they need to go to get the last piece of the boon. Final page, though, we see that mom and dad are already there, already trying to negotiate it with the people who hold the piece, but the big twist is they've already started working, putting the boon together. So we're hopefully working towards this end where we'll get to see what the boon is, have all these pieces together, and obviously we want to have Archer and Armstrong come out on top and win and save the day. I give this book 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. I highly recommend you check out Archer and Armstrong.
All right, guys, so I got to read Killogy #1 this week, and it kind of gives a little different take on zombies. Not really that much different. What's really cool about this book, though, is that it features the likenesses and I guess kind of the personalities a little bit of Frank Vincent, who was on Goodfellas, he was in Casino, he was on Sopranos, so he's kind of like that mob character. Mark Ramone, who's kind of like the smart-ass, smart-mouth guy, and Bree Grant, who is kind of just this crazy lady who chopped up her boyfriend. And it starts off with them trapped in a jail cell, trying to figure out how they all got there. No one understands what's going on. They've been trapped there for days, and then you realize they get attacked by a zombie cop. And like he's just relentless. He's going at it. They don't know what's going on. Goes a little long into the explanation of how the zombies came about, how this guy kind of pieces together the story, magical artifacts and things like that. I like the way they did it. Instead of it being a virus, some crazy stupid science thing, it's magic. You don't know how to fix magic. You don't know how to break that stuff, and that adds a little more suspense and like fear to me. Zombies can be feared greatly, or they can be playful little pets and, you know, like Fido or something like that. Science isn't always the scariest option. So it's nice to see that they're actually kind of like terrifying, but it just kind of was too talky for me. It was just too much blah, 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 not enough zombie killing action. So I hope later issues of this book definitely satiate my bloodthirst for zombie dried up blood. But check this issue out. I'm gonna give it 3.5 Nerd Skulls. Let me know what you guys think.
All right, I got to read /19. This is always a fun book to read. We start with them taking out basically a Jason-type character, someone that just won't die no matter what they do to him. Sent his body parts to different continents. He always comes back, and Cassie's just kind of sick of this. She just, she doesn't want to do this anymore. She's done. She kind of has this internal conflict about being a killer of killers and just how they're never going to have to stop and all this. And Vlad kind of is sick too. He says his part, but he's kind of the voice of reason with this. And it's a pretty action-packed book, really gory as usual, but the ending's really cool. It keeps me excited for the rest of the series. But yeah, I'm going to give this 3 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. Check it out.
Next up, I got to read Let's Play God #1. I'm going to be honest from the beginning, I did not like this book. It starts off with this chick band, really heavy metal rocking, practicing on a 30-minute song that's in their set. It's like, okay, that's kind of weird, whatever. And then we realize that the lead character, Mel, is a little conflicted with her life, and then her best friend, Billy, is just talking to her, and Mel leaves the practice, and oh my God, she sees a murder. And this dude who had been watching her gets his throat slit from behind. And you're like, okay, cool, that's interesting. I like it now. And the dude ends up dead, hanging half out the window. And like, awesome. And Mel's watching it. She's calling 911. She's like, oh my God, this happened, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, the friend Billy, who she'd been talking to, shows up in the apartment behind the guy right as the cops show up. We're like, okay, a little bit of intrigue. Let's see what's going on. Well, they end up at the police station, and they're kind of being questioned, and they have a little moment of privacy, and Billy asks Mel to hold a book that has some photos in it because she knew the dude, and the dude was a photographer, and he took pictures of her. Okay, that's weird and quirky. By the way, the whole time this is going on, the dialogue is a little sketchy. It's not the greatest dialogue, so that's not helping my interest at all. Cut to Mel goes home, and she's got this book. Of course, she flips it open, and there's some nude pictures of Billy. That could be interesting. But again, the whole time, the story's just kind of weak. It's taken a long time to get there. The dialogue's weird. As much as this should keep me engaged, it really didn't. So I can only give this book 2 out of 5 Nerd Skulls.
All right, guys, so I got to read Ghost #1 this week. Now, I did not know this when I first picked it up, and I thought it was going to be a Patrick Swayze heavy book. Totally not. So if you're missing him as much as I am, sorry, but this book was still really good, so definitely check it out. Either way, it's about someone who's been around in comic books before. I did not know this. I'm gonna go look it up. I want to see what this character's all about because it intrigued me. It had ties to like Greek mythology, some other godly things, but mainly Greek mythology. So I don't know what's up. I have no idea what's going on, but it was just really well drawn, really well written. It just sucked me in totally. It's like magical artifacts and all this craziness, and trying to find out true identity of this mysterious lady, the ghost. She kind of freaks out in the middle of a diner, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of twists and turns, and full noto on artwork, please. I mean, that's just a beautiful book right there in and of itself. Really gory, really well drawn, like simple, not too crazy, not too hyper detailed, but it does enough to get the point across. Overall, I got to give it 4.5 Nerd Skulls. It could have been a little bit better, a little bit more expanding on what happened before, but they give you enough. So you can totally enjoy this book. So definitely check it out. And again, let me know what you think.
All right. I got to read B.P.R.D, Return of the Master. Looks like Rasputin is coming back, which is awesome because I loved him as a villain in the Hellboy comic books. And I'm tempted to see how everything's handled with Hellboy now being dead and in hell. It looks like they've created a new body for Rasputin, and they're waiting to resurrect him. I think this is such a cool story. I feel like we're really building up to some all the B.P.R.D books have been building up to something, and I feel like this might be the climax that kind of changes everything. Whatever the next story is with the Master and everything like that, I feel like that's what we've been waiting for with this. So it's a really good book. I mean, I've always loved B.P.R.D. I'm giving this 4 out of 5 Nerd Skulls. All right, that is going to be all the comic book reviews we have for you this week. Until next week, check us out on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and nerdlocker.com for all your nerdy news. I'm Brandon.
I'm Cubby.
And you guys read it up.